October 2019, so like right before everything shut down. So we finished production exactly a year ago. And this month is when we're launching online failure toy workshops. So we're able to run workshops on empathy, but also on failure, resilience, grit, prototyping. So it's really, really exciting. So that's what our spring and winter is going to look like. Awesome. And then in the fall, we'll be looking at picking back up the training that you took. We're building that online. And so
awesome.
We'll reaching out to all the facilitators in your network and yourself as well.
Yes, please. It's amazing. If anyone out there, you all like really, this is, I tell you, I'm always talking about empathy toy because it just really literally transformed my life. And I mean that like literally, just because of the impact it's having, you know, and my ability to really connect with people as well. So please, you know, go to 21toys.com and reach out. They have an incredible website. And we do have some questions, which is great. So we have some time to answer some questions. So this is Eve. Let's see here. Eve says, could you walk through how people have been using those toys in a remote working environment? That's a good question.
Yeah. So the way that we use the toys in the remote environment is so we'll ship a part of the toy. So your own kit. That's actually what's behind me because we have a shipment going out soon. That's my homework. So we ship those out to folks' homes, and then one of our facilitators will guide something, usually about like a 90-minute workshop. So it'll be a combination of gameplay where we have lots of different variations. So the first one would be if it's a large group, we'd put you into breakout rooms or you'd work all in one room. But everyone turns off their cameras. So that's our version of the blindfold. And then the folks with the physical toys wait for instructions from the guides. And the guides are sent a link. We have a digital toy library. So you type in, we send you a special URL and it reveals a photograph, but it's of one perspective of the same pattern. And so the guides need to get on the same page to figure out what perspectives they have. And then they need to let the builder know how to build it. And that's always the first game that we play, and then different variations to build off of that. We've had versions where you'll turn your video off and your microphone off. And so you can only give instructions through the chat window, which you can imagine how that goes. I'm surprised that a lot of folks actually still get it. But right away, we're able to really mimic real world.
Confusion.
And options. Yeah. And so we'll focus on what didn't work, but we always start the debrief with what worked. And the positives of what was good. So people will say like, it was really hard, but my team really encouraged me to keep going, or it was really great when you started using metaphors, or there's a lot of things that we'll focus on what works. Then we can work on like what was challenging. And then always we bring it back to how can I apply that to my work?
Right. It's awesome. I mean, I've attended these, the online version, and yeah, it was really interesting because I mean, I had the real life experience and then the online, and both were quite different, but still very interesting, and still have the element of, you know, wow, it just, you know, really eye opening, you know, so really powerful. And yeah, definitely try it. You have online workshops. I mean, like you run these online workshops, right? Not workshops, but like a kind of a gameplay kind of, right? Or
we do, yeah. So with our empathy toy, here can I throw it into the chat window?
Yeah.
Yeah,
do that. You can.
So I can send a link to describe what happens in an empathy toy. And then if you reach out to us, we're going to be running, we're restarting our global play session. So we'll be running the failure toy. So I can share the Eventbrite link. It should be up next week. So we'll be running kind of free sessions for folks to try out with the new failure toy.
Great.
It's what we did with the empathy toy when we were first launching it this last year. So here, I've sent it to you in the private room, Laura. So I can copy that. Yeah. So that explains the online empathy toy experience. But yeah, it's all remote. And so I think the most exciting thing for us is, you mentioned we're in over 50 countries. But we haven't actually had a chance to talk to all the folks in all over the world because of until COVID, until we were all online. So the global play sessions are a really great spot.
Yeah. I mean, I really, really enjoyed them. I'm trying to find it, but either way, okay, here, I think it's this one here. Just need to, there we go. I'll save it and it should come up, right? That's it, right? Is that correct? Well, they may not see it, but what I'll do is I'll just put it on my profile. Yeah, and people can just easily connect with that. And then Anas had one more question before we run off. I know we're out of time, but maybe do we have time for one more question?
Oh yeah.
Okay, great. I hope that answered your question, Eve. Thank you so much for that question, Eve. So Anas Janud, he says, sometimes while we're trying to implement empathy at the workplace, some leaders do passive empathy. How do we prevent such practices? That's a good question, Anas. Yeah.
I think so. I'm going to make some assumptions with what you mean by passive empathy, but my thinking is like they're not really investing in it. So they're maybe saying, yeah, this is important, but they're not really like actively doing anything about it or doing very little. I think it's challenging. I think you do either. We've seen the best applications have been for sure when you have leadership at the top that understands the value of it. But we've also seen the value of very motivated employees and definitely folks in the learning and development space within a team that advocate for it. So while leadership might not necessarily be on board, of course, if they're really not on board with it, that's going to be a much harder thing to push. But there's a lot of opportunities for folks within an organization to advocate for that. And ideally, I know with us, when we've had someone from leadership who maybe was lukewarm and they're trying to get buy-in,
right.
Inviting them to the sessions and seeing it firsthand, getting them something in that experience, we've seen that work really, really well to get folks on board to really understand the value of it. It can be just really challenging, especially with things like empathy and also with our failure toy. There's just so much stigma around the words.
Right.
You first need to like unlearn or remove what they think it is, and then rebuild it. So it can be quite challenging. But I know from our view, so much of the thought leadership, if you Harvard Business Review or like any articles right now, everyone is talking about the importance of empathy and understanding its value. Where usually we meet leaders is they just don't understand what to do about that.
Right.
So how can we build that? How can we work through that? So we always recommend either for us, we have a team of expert facilitators we bring in. So it's always good to bring in an external facilitator if they don't have that internal facilitator capacity.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question, and you're absolutely right. I think a lot of people have these misconceptions, and that's why you just have to give them a little bite-sized experience to really captivate their imagination and recognize the importance of it. Because empathy is like the foundation of all conversation, right? The ability to understand the other person. Imagine if you're working with people or even at home and you're unable to see the other person's point of view. I mean, we already know what the worst case scenario could be. I mean, we're seeing that live, right? In the real world. So it's definitely worth investing in and really, when we're talking about, especially when I talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and really thinking about the idea of belonging starts with communication. Like how are you communicating to your people? How are you communicating to your staff, your team members, right? It all boils down to having that understanding. How are you engaging? How are you delaying judgment? How are you, having that patience, taking a moment to understand what the other person is feeling, thinking, right? To engender understanding. So it's such an important element, and your work is really phenomenal, Ilana. Thank you so much.
I feel the same about you. It's I mean, the whole reason that I started 21 Toys is because I want to put these tools into professionals like yourselves and to see how far you can go with it. So the fact that not only are you using it, but you're finding your own creativity within it and you're finding your own voice within it. That's why I started. That's why I started the business. That's why I keep designing toys.
And your toys are amazing. And the failure toy, I have to say, is incredible. And maybe we should do a separate show on failure, because that's a topic on its own, you know.
Yeah.
And again, huge insights there. I played the game, and wow, there was just like amazing experience, and I can't wait to have another show. So you have to come back, Ilana. You have to come back. I want to thank you so much for joining me today on the show. It's been very interesting, and I'm sure eye-opening for a lot of people. You saw Eve and Anas just asking these really important questions, and you can imagine when people watch it, maybe on a replay, there'll be more questions, because even though empathy we know is extremely important, the idea of using play to really activate those centers is not so common, and people are not that keyed in. So this is definitely a huge opportunity. And so I want to thank you so much for sharing with us today, and to thank everyone that showed up and engaged with us. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ilana.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone. And that's it. So until next time, be well. And yeah, keep having fun, keep engaging. If you can, join the empathy toy play session and really try to understand the impact of play, as it helps you to really connect and really build that connection, especially if you're wanting to build an inclusive workplace. Think about play. Think about the 21 toys and see how they can could potentially support you and help you in your journey. So yeah, with that, I'll say a big goodbye. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you.